We are going to discuss about Oracle forms. So basically, let's go through the topics that we will be covering. So first, it's creating data block and simple form. Next is triggers. Next, alerts, editors, LOV, record group, master detail form, menu, visual attribute and property class, program units, and then finally PL/SQL library. So these are the topics that we will be covering. First, an overview of Oracle Forms. So what is Oracle Forms? Oracle Forms is a rapid application development tool with which you can rapidly develop application based on the database. Oracle Forms is a product of Oracle Corporation, and the current version is Oracle Forms 12c. However, we will be using Oracle Forms 11G, the earlier version, which is the most stable version as of now. So that's about an overview of Oracle Forms. As you all know, a database consists of tables, and a table consists of rows and columns. So data is stored in tables in Oracle database. And Oracle is an RDBMS, that is Relational Database Management System. So the tables are related to one another through relationship, and these relationships are known as foreign keys, primary keys, and through foreign key, primary key, the relationship between the tables are established. So that is why Oracle is known as a relational database management system. Oracle forms run on top of Oracle database. So it internally connects with Oracle database and fetches the data from the Oracle table stored in the Oracle database. So we'll see how this comes into action when we start our training session. So first let us bring up the environment, and then we will start with the topics. So first we'll have to bring up the environment. So first we'll have to bring up the database. So I go to services. So this is my service. So we start the service. It will take a quick couple of minutes. So it's still starting up. It started. Now let's start the listener. Okay, the listener is also started. Now I will have to bring up the pluggable database. Okay, so I go to DOS prompt, then I set up the environment, then I connect to SQL, SQL class. Okay, Opening the pluggable data it is now open. Now let's connect to the Oracle database. So the schema is HR activity wells. So it's connected. So in this schema, in the HR schema, we have the HR table. So if we go to the tables, we have these are the tables: countries, customers, employees, department, job, location, region. So these are the tables. So if we go to employees, if you go to employees, if you query data, so these are the employees. Here you see department ID. This is a foreign key which points to the primary key of the department table. So department 90 is actually executive. Department name is executive. So this department 90, you see, has been referenced in a foreign key in employees table. This department 90. So it's a foreign key. So this is how the relationship between the tables are maintained in an Oracle database, which is an RDBMS. Okay, now let's bring up the forms environment. Okay, okay, so let's start the CMD window. Then go to the yeah, okay, so form builder will start now. So our form builder is up and running. So this is how the form builder looks, and we have this module, then trigger, alert, status libraries, data blocks, canvas, editors, events, LOBs, object group, parameters, pop-up unit, program unit, property class, record group, reports, and visual attributes. And we also have a window, we have menu, we have SQL libraries. So these are the different components of Oracle Form Builder. But before we start developing Oracle Forms, we first need to connect to the database. So yeah, connect. We have to give the database detail. Okay, now it's connected. So now let's go back to the first topic, creating data block and simple form. Data block is a building block of Oracle Form. Let's change this name to and data blocks are of two types. One is a control block, which is not based on a base table, and one is a normal data block, which is based on base table block, which is based on a base table in Oracle data. So we are going to create a base table block. So highlight data block, create We create, use data block wizard, okay. Next, table or view. Then we have to click browse. We click on departments table. Then always we have to select departments. We have to go, okay. New canvas. It's talking about the canvas on which the data block will be displayed. So we want all the fields. So this is fine. This defaulted from the database, and this is forms have defaulted the name. Next, we want it in a form. In a form, there are two ways: form and tabular. We want it in a form layout, and then next, frame title. Let's say we put departments. Departments. Next, finish. Let's create a date for today. Today is 15th. Today is 14th September. Saturday. Today is actually Sunday. It's Sunday. So it should be 15th. And, 2019. We'll save all our files in this directory. So let's go to it. So okay, so the form is now created. Let's go back to the object navigator. So in the object navigator, you can see this is the department, this is the data block, these are the items of the data block, and this is the canvas where the data block is created. If you click on this, you see this is the layout of the form. So this is a simple form, base table form. Now let's run this form. Okay, I need to start the WebLogic server. Asking for the password. So it started in running mode. So we are fine now. Now let's run this form. So this is the department form. This is in window 1. Now, if we want to query, if we want to execute queries, this is the execute query. So you see all the departments are here. You can add a new department. If we go to the last record, it's department 90. So if we add a new department, record insert new department 100, department name, test, PP, manager IT, industry, application IT, 207. We can save this record. Save the so department 100 is already there. Yeah, department 100 is already there. So we have to select a department which is not there. 121, next 122, 124. Let's add a department 300. Let's add department 300. 300 and save this record. Yeah, one record applied and saved. So, so you can update a department, you can insert a department, you can also update a department. Like this, we can say testing, and save it. So it's saved. So you can insert, update, or you can also delete a department. You can also delete a department record, remove. So remove. That department is removed. Now it says transaction complete, one record applied and saved. So this is how we create a simple form. So now in the form window, let's save our form. Showing 15 September 2011. Let's save it. So we have saved our form. And we have created a form. Now maybe we need to we can add a data block. We can add a data block which is a control block. So let's add a data block. This is the result. Yes. It won't allow me to add like cancel this, add a data block, build a data block manually. Now we name this data block. We name this data block as control block. Yeah. And in the items, let's let's add an item. Property palette name display item. It's a display item, and let's make it a display item. And so this is not a database item, so this should be no. So that's it. We have created a display item here. Now let's go to the canvas. This control block, if we go to the property palette, go to the property palette. Mm, that should be a canvas property. Maybe not in the blog, maybe in the item, display item, property palette. The canvas now is null. So let's select our canvas for that. Now if we go to the canvas, we go to the canvas. So this is the display item. So we can bring it down here and make it bigger. Okay, save this. Go back to the object navigator. Now let's write a trigger. We'll come to trigger later, but with new form instance, let's write a trigger. Colon display item colon equal to form training. Okay. Now let's take this form training display item. Okay, so we are giving a value to this display item when the form instance trigger. That is when the form runs, we are giving a value to the display item. Let's run this. Console block with display items is not able to find console block display item. Display item is in control block. What is the problem? When new form instance trigger, right digit begin. No, control block of display item. When okay, there was some spelling mistake. That's why it was giving error. So now display item. So that's fine now. So now let's run this form. Let's run this form. So you see, this is a control block. It is not referring to the database field. So we have populated it with forms training in the when new form instance trigger. So that's why forms training is appearing in the display item. And this is a display item, not a text item. Okay. So one thing to note is items. What are the different types of items if you want to see the property palette? These are the different types of items you can create. Bin area, text box, display item, arrow text field, image, list item, push button, radio button, text item, user area, activate control. This is obsolete chart item, obsolete relay controller, obsolete sound, obsolete DVS control, obsolete. So these are the different types of items you can create in the forms. Okay, that's about the first chapter, creating data blocks and simple forms. We have done this. So we'll meet next for the next chapter. Thank you. Hi, welcome back. We're going to start the next topic, which is trigger. So, what is a trigger? Trigger is an event-based operation. When a particular event happens, the trigger automatically fires, and in the trigger, you can execute the SQL code to implement your business logic. So, in this form, suppose in the department block, we add a trigger when button pressed. When button pressed. We add a trigger when button pressed. As of now, let's put null, or let's put a message. Message, I am click. Okay, fine. So in this item, let's create an item. Let's create an item. This property palette. This item name will be click me, click me, and it's the push button, and the canvas is canvas 4. So once we do that, then if we go to the canvas, I want the button to be here. Okay. So navigator, property palette, push button. I want to give it a label. Click me. So I created a button, and then okay, I will remove this trigger. Then in the trigger, I will add a trigger when when button press, I will give a message. I am click. Okay. So, so let's run this form. So this click me button, if I click on this click me button, I get a message, I am clicked. So this is how we implement triggers in Oracle Forms. The other trigger that we have already implemented is the when new form instance trigger, where we have set the message on the display item to form string. So the value of display item has been set to form string in the when new form instance trigger, and that is also working fine. So this is about triggers. Now, when you talk about triggers, there are so many types of triggers. There are some key triggers: key, clear block, clear form, clear record, commit, query, create record, delete record, key down, key loop item, key loop break, key edit, key enter query, key exit, key F0, key F1, key F2, key F3, F4, F5, F6, F7, F8, F9, help, list val, menu, next item, next block, next key, next break, next set, next others, previous item, change, previous block, previous state, scroll down, scroll up, up, update record, on error, on message, on sequence of post change, key, pop up, and there are when triggers, when custom event, when mouse click, when mouse double click, when mouse down, when mouse enter, when mouse leave, when mouse move, when mouse up, when new item instance. So these are the different types of triggers that you can create on the at the item level. Similarly, at form level, if you see, you will see same all the key triggers, on triggers, post triggers, pre triggers, and then when triggers. So these are the triggers that you can create at the form level. You can also create trigger at the block level, if you see the triggers that are available at the block level, these are the key triggers, the on triggers, post triggers, pre triggers, and when triggers. So, so this is how you create triggers in Oracle form and implement triggers. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is alert. So what is an alert? Alert is something you give a message to the user during your forms application. You want to give some message to the user. At that time, you create an alert. So how alerts are created? Create alert. If you create, the alert 9 is created. That's the property. Let's change the name to my alert. Alert, my alert. Alert style is stop caution mode. So you can give any of these type. Say we say a no. We want OK and cancel button. So that's about the alert. So in the alert, this is my alert. And then in the when button pressed, I'm commenting this out. I'm not giving a message, but I'm showing the alert. So I have a code here for the alert. This is my alert. Okay. So now I'm giving the alert. So let's run this form. Hmm. Okay, compiled. Now let's run this form. So this this is the my alert with OK cancel button is coming. There is no message because we have not put any input message. However, if we go to the object navigator, we go to the alert, properties alert. We have some message option. This is an alert. Alert. Okay. This is an alert. Whatever message you give, you can display. Now you can also override the default. You can also override the default alert message with your own custom message dynamically. So this is how you do that. This is my alert. So we are setting the properties, alert property, alert message text to welcome to forms training. So now if you run this code, it won't give you this is an alert, it will give you welcome to forms training. Okay, compile. Okay, now if I click this, welcome to forms training. So the message has been overwritten at runtime. So you can dynamically change the message of the alert as per your wish. So this is about alert. This is about alert. Uh, next, our next topic is editors. There is not much to tell about editors. Normally, we use the default editor. So a text item comes with the default editor, and if you run this form, this is the default editor. So record, if you say insert, then this is the default. This is the default editor. So the default editor is by all means sufficient. So you need not specify any system editor or any user-defined editor. But if you wish, you can do so. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Mm, We were talking about the different topics of forms. Next, we will cover record group and LOB. Record group and LOB. What is an LOB? So suppose if I run this form, now if I go to record and say insert, so I put a department ID, say 500. Now in the manager ID and location ID, I don't know what values to put. So I need a list of values. So field, sorry, record, edit. Yeah, if I click on display list of values not available for this thing. But if I make a list of value available, then it will display the list of values. So let's try to implement that. So in the location table, in the employees table, employee ID is the manager ID. It's a self-referential entity. So self-referential. So employee ID is actually the manager ID. So what we can do is for the manager ID, we first have to create a record group. We have to first create a record group. So let's create a record group. Select employee ID, comma first name from employee. Okay, and we give it a name employee underscore record. Okay, so we create a record group employees underscore IG, and then in the LOB we create an LOB user wizard. using an existing record group. The employees RJ. Modify record group. No, we won't modify. So first name, employee and first name, employee ID first name. Look up return item. Look up return item is department dot manager ID. Department dot manager ID. Title managers. Managers. Next. Next. Manager ID assigned item. I think we need a mistake here. Column, LOB column, first name, last name. Because return item. Yes, police. Yes. Property palette. His name is employee manager LOB. Employee column mapping. Employee ID is manager ID, correct? First name, return item is done. So that's fine. So now let's run this form. Now if we go to record insert. So we give it number of department 500. Now if in manager ID, if we do display list, it will give me the manager. So you can select. So how easy it is to select the manager now? It's very easy to select the manager now. Let's do this for location also. So in the location table, what columns we have? Location ID, street address. Okay, let's take these two columns. So record group, create a record group, select location ID, street address from locations. From locations, okay, and let's rename this property palette location RG. Okay, so location RG. Now we have to create a LOB. We have to create a LOB using LOB wizard existing, and we have to select locations RG. Modify, we don't want to modify. We want both. Okay, then location ID, departments dot location ID. Next, item locations. Next, next, department dot location ID. Next, finish. So let's give this a name. Location LOB. Location LOB. Okay, fine. Now let's save this and let's run this. Okay, now let's go to record, insert, save this department 500, test LOB. Now in manager ID, go to edit, display field, We get all these managers. Let's say Sundar is a manager. And then similarly location ID display list, we are getting the location. Okay. So we are getting the location. Let's say select this location and then save the record. One record applied and so this is how LOVs are implemented in Oracle Forms. Through record group, LOVs are implemented, and we have seen a live example of location and manager ID in the in our department's form. So that's about record group and LOV. There is also another item in the forms like uh, manager ID. If we go to the property palette is showing manager ID. So list of values is showing as manager LOV. Instead of that, if we want a static list of items, then here there is a item type which is a list item. List item, and here in the list item you can the pop-up list, list or pop-up of different type of list item. In the elements in the list, you can specify what are the values you want to see. Suppose you want to see y and n, so you can say y and you can say n. I'm not saving this, I'm changing, reverting back the changes. Okay. And let's save this form. Okay, so that is about LOB and list items. Uh, I will give an example of list item later. So you can see how list item also. So that's it. Thank you. This form that you see departments is a standalone form. But suppose for department 50, you want to see the employees of that department. So it should be a tabular form below this where you can see the employees of department 500. So that is master detail. So let's create a master detail. Before master detail, the table employees and departments should have a primary key foreign key relationship. So in the employee table, its department ID is a foreign key and it points to the department ID of the department table. So department is the master table and employees is the detail table or the child table. So let's create a form. We call this form master detail. Master detail. Detail. Master detail. Okay, let's we create a block. Create a block wizard. Tabular view. Select the departments table. Choose all the columns, departments, finish. And all the columns, form, finish. So our master block is created. Now we'll create another data block. Tabular view. Here we choose employees. So we select all the columns. Next, create relationship, departments. So we are choosing this relationship, employee, finish. is on the columns. We click next, and then we click next, and this is a tabular form. Next, frame title, employees. Next, finish. So our master detail form is created. Now let's run this form. So here you see our master detail form. So let's query, enter query, query execute query. Sorry, I have to bring the cursor here and query. Enter query, execute query. So this is 500, it doesn't have any employee. This is 10, it has one employee, Jennifer. This is 20, it has one employee. Sorry, it's all showing one employee because I made a mistake in the property, in the object navigator, in the employees property panel, property palette, number of record displayed. I want to make it 10. Okay, so that's it. Save this from master detail.fmd. So let's run this form. So I bring the cursor here, enter query, execute query. 500 doesn't have any employee. 10 has one employee. 20 has two employees. 30 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 employees. So like that, you can see they are related, the departments as well as related employees are shown. So you can also modify, say make it one and save the record. Save the record. Nothing changes to save. Okay. This form is going to. Okay. Yeah, there is a form. Just save this form. We got applied and saved. So we go back to the previous record. Come here and go back to the previous record. Next record. So it's saved on the upstream one. Similarly, you can create a new department along with new employees. So that's about That's about the master detail form, master detail in Oracle form. So uh, we have created a master detail form with department as the master block and employee as the detail block. Okay. Hi, welcome back. We'll cover the next topic now, which is menus. Menus. When you talk about menu, you can see this action, edit, query, block, record, field, help window. This menu is by default, it appears to every form. In the form, in the form, you go to the property palette. Menu module is the default and smart bar. So is this is the this is the default menu. So if you this means that this this menu what you are seeing on the top will appear in your form. But you can change this menu to your own menu. So for that we need to create a menu module. We need to create a menu module. So let's do that. Forms, menu. Let's create a menu. Let's give it a name. My menu. Okay. Okay. My menu. And in the menu we create. So if we click here, we will see new item. We will say this is departments, and then create right. So say master detail. Okay. So this is done. Now if we click here, not here, sorry. Let's go to the object aggregator. The departments, we have to give the we have to give this, and here our this is the direction. This is the direction. Departments data framework. So that's it. Okay. And then in the master detail, we'll give the same thing. Copy this. Master detail will be the same thing, only the form name will change. Form name is master detail data framework. Master detail data framework will change the form name. We need to select. Save this. My menu.mnd 15 September. Yeah. So now in the departments form, in the menu module, we have to specify the full name of this menu. So this is the part. So we have to specify the slash. Okay, we have to compile this. We have to compile this from Control T, I think. Control Shift T. Menu build successfully. So we have this my menu.mx. We need to see the departments, property format. We have to specify that. I hope this is fine. Now let's run the department's form. Let's run the department's form. So you see now department and master detail. So if I click on master detail, the master detail form comes. If I click on department, the department form comes. So this is how we implement a custom menu instead of the default menu. So now if we want to change the the menu to the default menu, so you have to specify this in the menu module. So we have to specify this in the menu module. So departments, property color, departments, property color. If we change this, we save this, and then run the form. So you can see now the menu is replaced with the default menu. So this is how you can create a custom menu and attach it to a form. Normally, in a forms application, there will be a menu, the login form. On top of the login form, there will be a custom menu. And to the menu, you have to navigate to the different part of the application, different forms of the application. So that is about menu module. Thank you. Welcome back. So now our next topic will be property attribute, visual attribute and property class. These are basically reusable components of Oracle forms. Suppose you have a form with 100 fields. Now you want to, for the text item, you want to set certain attributes to the field, some visual attribute. So you can do that by implementing visual attribute and property class. So let's the difference between visual attribute and property class is visual attribute only says the color and font, uh, property of an property class says any property. Scope is more. Visual attributes only sets the color and font. You can assign a property class to the property class. Property of the property visual attribute is about create a property class and visual attribute. First, we'll create a visual attribute. Say we create a visual attribute. We say my VA. Foreground, background, we set the background color. We'll set the background color to say green. Okay. And now this visual attribute my VA, we will apply to one of the items. So data block, say department name, In this department name, we will assign this visual attribute. Visual attribute group. Here we say my VA. Okay. So this is how we assign a visual attribute to an item. Now if we run the employee department form, so you can see the department name, the background color has been changed to green. So this is how you assign a visual attribute. Now let's create a property class, departments, property class. Let's create a property class. Let's give it a name as my underscore PA. So subclass information, my PA. Okay. Now, okay. Property palette, subclass, subclass, property class name, yeah. Create a property class. Okay. 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 So property class 24. If we go to the property class, then we will have to add a property. So we can say background color, okay, and background color we have to specify. Say we specify this color. Then let's another property. Let's say font, font, font name. We select a font name. Let's select a font name, Maglan Acoustic. Then let's add a font size, font size, okay, it's a 12. Okay, so we have created a property class. Property class, this is the my underscore PA PC property class. Save this, and then in the manager ID field, we can assign this property class subclass information, property class, my piece. Okay. So now we have applied this to the manager ID field. So now if we run this form, so you see manager ID, the size has been increased to 12 font size, and the font background color has been, so if we is blue, execute query. So the size has been changed, and the property and the background color has been changed, and also the font family name has been changed. So you can see this. So this is how you implement property class and visual attributes. Both do the same thing. Only uh, visual attributes you can set the font and the color, but in property class you can set multiple items, multiple objects. So if you go to the property class, And if you click on this plus sign, you will see there are so many properties which you can set. So all these properties you can set in the property class. So so that is about property class and visual attribute in Oracle form. They are reusable components. That means in an application in Oracle form, if you have 100 items and all are text items, and all of them you want to set the background colors to yellow or to green. So how will you do that? So instead of modifying each item, you create a property class or a visual attribute and then assign the visual attribute to each of the items. So this is how. So that is the reason they are called reusable components. Okay, thank you. Next, our next topic would be program units. What do you mean by program units? Program units is PL/SQL procedure function. These are known as program units. So one way you can create program units is in the database. In the database, you create program units like you create procedure function in the database, and you can call those program units from forms. In forms also, you can create program units locally within the form. And if you create a program unit within a form, that program unit will be only accessible to that form. So suppose in the department, in this form, we are going to add a local program unit. We give it a name test underscore proc, and it's a procedure. So we will write this code in this program unit, insert into HR debug. Department is :department ID. So whatever department ID you are currently in, that department ID will be inserted into the debug table. So let's select start from debug. So let's start from debug. Debug. So we have two rows here. Let's delete the rows. Delete from debug. Delete from debug. Yes, and just commit. So now if we select from debug, there is no record. So now in the form we have created this program unit. Okay, and then in the click me, which upload, in the click me when button press, instead of this alert message, I will now call this test block. Test underscore block. That's it. So I will call this program unit from when button press trigger on. Okay, this will begin. Begin. Okay, compile. So now in the click me when button pressed, I'm calling the program unit which is defined locally within the form. So let's run this form. Now let's query the data. Let's go to 10, department 10, and then click view. So now if we see in our table, see department 20. Let's go to another department, department 20, and click view. So in a program, in a database, now department 20 is also inside. So this is how you create a local program unit in Oracle Forms and use that program unit in your Forms application. Okay, that's about program unit. Now let's talk about PL/SQL library. So the point with program unit, the problem with program unit is that it is only visible to the form where you have defined the program unit. Like this text block I have written as a program unit in forms departments, it's not available in other forms. So that is the drawback. So for that, we create a PL/SQL library, which is also a form level item. And once we create a PL/SQL library, that library you can attach to any form, and you can use the functions of the PL/SQL library in any form where you attach the PL/SQL library. So the functional procedures that you write in a PL/SQL library can be used in any form where that PL/SQL library is attached. So normally when you have big chunk of code, you put it in a PL/SQL library and reuse it in any form. So this is also a reusable component. So let's implement a PL/SQL library. Here in PL/SQL library, you create a PL/SQL library lib3, and then in the program unit, you create a program unit. We have program unit function, and their name is admin. 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 Okay. So we have the code here which adds two numbers. Okay. So that's our first program. First, that is our first program unit at num. Next, we will add another program unit which is num. So we have to save the library. The libraries are saved in .pll, and when you compile, it generates a .pl. So this is num. We have two units. We will have a third one, which is sub function. Okay. Okay. So we have created the program unit. So our library is now created, lib_3. Let's compile the library. So here, when we compile the library, we see the .plx file is generated. Now, let's create a form. Let's create a form library. Form, let's name it property palette. Let's name it library. Library, okay. And in this library, we will add a control block. We'll add a control block. We'll add a control block. Name this as calc. This is not a database block, so we have to change it to no. Okay. And here we will add items P1. Then we change it to P1 text item. Then we'll add another item. P2. So P1, P2. Next we'll add buttons. Property palette. This one is add. This is a push button. Add. Then we add another item. Property palette. Multiply. Push button. Then we add another item. Push button. Then a support. So we have added these buttons. Okay. Now we have to create a canvas. Canvas 8. P1. Go to the property palette. In canvas, you have to select canvas 8. P2. You go to the property palette. You select a canvas. Canvas 8. Okay. Add to create property palette. Canvas 8. Multiply property palette. Canvas 8. Subtract. Go to the property palette. Change the canvas null to canvas it. That's it. And then we have to add another item, which is result, and it's display item. So display item. Then its canvas has to be set to canvas 8. Canvas has to be set to canvas 8. Okay. Now let's go to the canvas. So we have P1, we have P2, and we have this button, and this button, and then the result. Okay. Now let's go to the object configurator, add, what is it? Label is property format, label is apply. Then we go to the sub button, property palette, label is subtract. Okay, fine. Now we have to when button press, and the trigger code would be so this is add none. Here we have to add a trigger in button press. This is one. Here we have a trigger in button press. This should be tab. Okay. Now we have okay. It's saying subnum must be declared. Okay, because we haven't attached the library. Now is the time when we will attach the library. In the attached library, we will browse PLL open attach. So the library is attached. Now if we try to compile the PL SQL, first compile. So let's run this library form. Okay. So 10, 10, 5, Now if we say subtract 5, this is a multiply. And then the difference. Okay, that's one. I think we have to do this for all of them. Okay, because the form is running, so I have to close this form. Okay, now if I so it's built successfully. Now let's run this form. So not the library form. Now let's run this form. So we will input as 10 and 5, 50, add is 15, subtract is 5. So it's working fine. So what we did here, we basically created a library. We created a library, PL/SQL library, lib_3. We created 3 program units in it, and we compiled the library, generated the .plf. Then in the library form, we attach that library, and then in the when button press triggers of the button, add, multiply, and subtract button, we have called the methods or the functions of that library. So this is how you can use the functions of a library in any form where you attach that library. So this is the use of PL/SQL library. It's a reusable component, and it's very efficient and very elegant way of reusing your PL/SQL code. So that's it. Thank you. Welcome back. We have we are left with the last topic, which is parameters. So in forms, you can call one form from another form. So we have this department and library form. We have this department form and we have this library form. Now from this department form, we can call the library form. But at the same time, when calling the form, we can also pass some parameters. And we can use those parameters in the call form. So for example, so the way we do that, this is a way of passing values from one form to the other form. So let's, in the department form, let's create parameters. P department number. So first parameter we will name as P underscore DEPT and the next parameter will create underscore location. So we created two parameters in the calling form, in the parent form, and then in this departments we will create a button. We will create a button. We will call this call library, call library, and we will make it a push button. Label is call library. So we are calling the library form, and in the call form, in the button, we will have to create a trigger when button fails, and we will write this code. We'll write this code. So here we are setting the P department number to colon department ID and P location to location ID. So we will compile this form, and then we are calling the library form. But this library form, so this is a path. Okay. Okay. And we have to save this library form. We save this library form. But we have to also build it. We have to compile the library. So now in the departments form, we have created a button, and on the when button pressed, we are calling the library form. So canvas is null. We have to set the canvas to canvas 4. Okay. And if we go to the canvas, how does it look? So this call library, we will place it here. We will place it beside click. Okay. So that's done. Now, for the parameters to work in the call form, we'll have to create a similar parameter with the same name as in the calling form. Same name we have to give. So this we have to give P underscore DEPTNO, and the next one, this one, we have to give name P underscore location. So the name has to be identical. Okay, and then in the we create a trigger when new form instance, where we will set the item P1 and P2 with the values of the parameter. Okay. So okay, we are done. So what we did in the call form, in the calling form, that is the master form, we created two parameters, P underscore DEPT number and P underscore location. And then we created a button In the when button press trigger, we are assigning the values of department ID and location ID to these parameters, and we are calling the form the library form. And then in the call form, we need to create similar two parameters with the same name. And in when new form instance trigger, we are using the values of these two parameters to populate P1 and P2. So let's test this out. So we will run the department form. Okay, let's query, visit query. Let's go to department 10. And now when we click the call library, it's 200 and 1700 should get passed. Okay, I think we didn't compile the library form after making changes, so we save this and we compile this. Okay, now if we, if we call library, so here you see 10 and 1700 got passed to the called form. So this is how you can use parameters while calling one form to another. You can pass values through parameters. So I think we have covered all the components of Oracle Forms, starting from triggers, alerts, libraries, data blocks, items, canvas, LOB, record group, parameters, program units, property class, visual attributes, and SQL libraries, menus. So we have covered all the topics, all the components of Oracle. Thank you very much, and